Harvard Business Review featured a story on how lonely it is to be a leader. Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos have also admitted to feeling lonely. How do you address loneliness and isolation head on? And what are the things that you can do in order to get out of this loneliness and isolation? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of the Courage to Identify podcast with me, your host, Sharon Angel. Today, we're going to talk about navigating loneliness and isolation. And when you're feeling lonely and when you're feeling isolated, how do you find your identity, or what do you do in these situations? Everyone wants to be the first to find the next best thing or find the person who is giving this idea for the next best thing. And when these ideas are celebrated, when they are accepted, these people are kind of put on a platform and are given a lot of space. And when these ideas are not celebrated or accepted, people who gave these ideas tend to feel lonely or isolated. So today in this episode, I'm going to talk about navigating loneliness and isolation, both offline and online, and what are the things that you can do in order to get out of this loneliness and isolation. So to begin with, we're going to talk about people who are accepted and are able to take criticism well versus people who are not taking criticism well. And I think this is very important for a day and age because we share ideas, we are forced to say what we believe, we are forced to share our opinions, but we also, I think, need to have the courage and the bravery to accept constructive criticism that comes along with it. So those who are celebrated and accepted for their ideas, they come to the top immediately, or they rise to the top pretty fast if you think about it. Because one, they were not afraid to raise their voice and share their thought. Number two, that space to share their opinion was honored. And three, they were articulate enough to present their idea as well. Does that mean that people who are not celebrated do not present good ideas? It was probably because they didn't know how to share their ideas well, didn't know how to present their ideas well for their environment. And those who are not able to accept criticism well tend to usually go into isolation and force themselves into being alone and say, I'm just going to do my job, I'm just going to work here, get my paycheck, and move along. Now, this is a broad example of feeling isolated and lonely. But I always say, share your thoughts, share your ideas, because if you are someone whose idea can change the trajectory of a job, career, a company, a corporate, a small business, I think everyone should have the opportunity and the space to be able to share their thoughts, especially when it's going to change the course of the present and the future. So if you are watching this episode and you are feeling isolated, if you're feeling unheard, if you're feeling polarized, unwanted, and you're just plain feeling lonely, this episode is for you. I'm going to share some tools, some examples to come out of this isolation, come out of this loneliness, and be able to find your identity and exert it in all courage and confidence. So here's something that I want to share with you that I read in the recent days. I read about loneliness and polarization in leaders and pioneers. Harvard Business Review featured a story on how lonely it is to be a leader. And I thought this would encourage you. Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, people who are kind of running our lives, have also admitted to feeling lonely. They've also admitted to feeling lonely as a CEO, as a boss, as a pioneer in their fields. And if you look at history, all of the innovations, or most of the innovations, were met with criticism. And so far as to being called evil, so far as to calling them bad, and even having to say seances and, prayers against these innovations coming into play. And the more this idea grew, the more this person was trying to make this idea a reality, they were only met with more hate and even came to terms, even in some instances, they were ready to burn them at the stake. So if you really think about it, some ideas are met with criticism, some ideas are met with hate. But if they really serve a purpose in the 21st century, why are we still criticizing ideas? Why are we still hating on something that is so nuanced and could even lead to new innovations and technology? Especially on social media, when there's a new idea that is shared, which serves a purpose, serves a need in the community, there are plenty of people who come and criticize this idea and hate on this idea. And when it is trying to bring us to the future, enabling us to be relatable to certain things or serving a purpose, filling a need in our lives, why is the comment section so critical in order to shut down new ideas, regardless of who it comes from, right? So everyone on social media and everyone in the real world as well needs to practice some kind of open mindset, open thought, and even responsibility to question, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Why am I joining the group in order to hate this idea? So looking at everything that was criticized in the past, the automobile industry, the internet, the music industry, there was so much criticism for this. And religion became a huge play into cursing it out or pushing it out of the community, the society, the culture, and so on. But look at the purpose that it is serving today. Internet has become a huge part of our lives. Cars have become a huge part of our lives. Music has become a huge part of our lives. But the person who was starting this, or the pioneers who were starting these industries that they have become today, were always met with criticism. So it's very important for us to learn how to handle criticism. So if you have an idea and are met with criticism, don't worry. Here are some tools that I want to give you to encourage you to keep sharing your story, number one. Number two, you can't expect your idea to be implemented without criticism. So be strong and be courageous. Number three, explain it better. You can use different case studies and verbiage to present your idea. Number four, study small businesses as examples and tweak your idea to cater to the existing problem. I've been able to use these tools and use these methods into my life, especially when I present an idea and it's faced with criticism. I've been able to employ these methods, and I hope these tools will be helpful to you as well. So going deeper into isolation, many people, when they face some kind of negative comment or criticism, they tend to conform to the majority of the opinion. And sometimes this might not match their original identity. And this essentially is also taking the easy way out, right? It's taking the comfortable route to say, I do not want any negativity or hate. Why does it matter if my opinion is heard or not? It's not my problem. So they tend to build a false identity or a fake identity that truly might not be who they are in order to find a sense of belonging. And this is dangerous, and it can be dangerous because this can become a false sense of belonging. So what is fake identity or what is false identity? It is pretending to be someone to be liked, fit in, and be accepted. Especially on social media, this happens, but we also play this role in real life. And yes, we also do this in real life where we want to be accepted, we want to fit in, and we want to conform to the norm. But this can be also called as impostor syndrome. And what happens when you have the impostor syndrome? Number one, you begin to overthink friendships and lose trust in all humanity. Number two, you build a false identity online and you start finding friends that like this fake personality that you've built. And finally, when conflict arises, you let friendships go easily. So think of half-truths. This can also be risky because you don't find meaningful connections for your whole self. You find a friendship or relationship for a certain image that you put online or a certain image that you present to people in the real world. Now, these friendships that you build on half-truths or imposter syndrome or a fake identity, these friendships won't last. And I always say to have real connections and meaningful connections in the real world in this generation, we need to make connections both online and offline and be real to who we are. And this is why I stress on finding your identity so much, because you need to be authentically you. And this is why I stress on finding your identity. And when you are authentically yourself, not only does it give you confidence, does it give you peace, but you also attract real people with genuine intentions, a well-developed, well-rounded personality and character. And when you meet each other, when you meet this person, then you will have meaningful connections and not have that void anymore in order to forcibly put yourself in loneliness and forcibly isolate yourself. Now, how do you address loneliness and isolation head on? I want to talk to you about the importance of a third place. During the pandemic, we were all shut down into our houses, shut in our houses for a bunch of time. And some of us realized the importance of sunlight and fresh air. We just needed to go outside and just experience nature, experience that fresh air and sunlight. But there were some families, some relationships, because of being shut in for such a long time, those relationships broke. Families had very intense and difficult disagreements. Look at the divorce rate. There were many marriages that broke up and the divorce rate skyrocketed. And in that way, many friendships broke, many relationships broke, many people decided to change jobs, even though some chose to work remotely, some chose to stay inside. Many people changed their careers during that time. So I stress on the importance of third place. And what is this third place? Let me explain that to you first. So if I have to talk to you about the third place, let's go into the first place or the first circle. Who is in your first circle? So I always say in my first circle are my family and my friends. And in my second circle are people who I know from school and work. And in the third circle or in the third place is when everyone I know from institutions like religious institutions like my church, or organizations like volunteering and service centers, and communities like parks, coffee shops, restaurants, and libraries, or any commuting services would all come under this. The third place is essentially a place or a spot where you go to without even thinking about it, to get rejuvenation, to relax, to chill out, or you even pass by during your commute to somewhere else. And we need these third places, and we need to be in these third places, because if you really think about it, everything that we learn in our first circle and our second circle is to thrive and to be alive, to come alive in this third place. So all the skills that we developed from when we're young, the discipline and the lessons that we get in order to become a good human from our family and friends, the talent and the lessons that we learn at work or at school or educational institutions, it's all so that we thrive and be good humans in this third place. We perform well in the third place. We are good contributors of society in the third place. So if we're avoiding the third place, if we're avoiding going outside, what is the point of even learning these skills, being part of the first circle and the second circle and all of those lessons that were taught to us? What is the point of getting all those lessons and that education and getting that spanking from our parents to be a good person if we don't bring ourselves to the third place and we don't find a community in the third place? So get out, get some sunlight, get some fresh air, and get out of your comfort zone even, so that you can find similar people or you can find people who give you a different perspective in the third place. Also, if you're purposefully isolating yourself and feeling lonely because of something someone else said, don't let them have that authority over you. Yes, their thoughts, their behaviors, what they have said to you might have broken you. But if you continue to stay isolated and if you continue to have your walls up, then you are breaking yourself again. You are giving that person authority over your life. And you need to ask yourself, is you breaking yourself by being isolated and being lonely and feeling lonely worth it? Is it worth the time? Is it worth the energy? So try not to overthink and try not to have overthought thoughts. I know it is very common. It is very easy to do that because it's very easy to follow that trail and stay in that trail. But instead, what if you come out of your comfort zone? What if you start making new connections? What if you start meeting new people and you start living life? What if you start living life fully and not just exist? What would that look like for you? And if you're isolating yourself because of something that you saw or heard on social media, learn that social media is not black or white. It is gray. And it is very important to live in the gray, navigate the gray, because life is like that too. Life is like living in the gray. And we have to navigate the good with the bad. There is bad and there is evil on social media. So it comes with personal responsibility. If your algorithm is looking a certain way that you're not okay with, you can always swipe through it, scroll through it, and educate your algorithm to change the kind of videos, posts, and things that you hear on social media. It's not something I have to teach you. I'm sure it's something that you know, but be cognizant, be present in the content that you take in. And if you have shared your opinion on social media and you're getting criticism for it, if you're getting negativity and hate for it, obviously you can report it. But also learn to exercise strength, learn to exercise courage. Because if your intentions are right, if your mind is in the right place, and if you had good intentions, you can always learn how to navigate that with grace and wisdom. And this is why, again, I stress that finding your identity is so important so that you're not swayed by all of these opinions and thoughts that you're not okay with on social media. So if you are in this isolated phase, or if you're feeling lonely, try to see where that is coming from. Where are these feelings stemming from? And if there's something that you can do about it, you can act on it and maybe realize that maybe there's something that you need to work on, something that you need to change. Go ahead and do that. It is not worth being in this place of isolation. It is not worth cornering yourself away from the reality of things and feeling all of these feelings, feeling lonely for the sake of others. So get up and go do life, because I know you will be successful. I know you will be able to navigate these feelings as well. If you want to be a pioneer, if you are a leader implementing solutions, implementing plans, believe in yourself and learn to keep working and keep churning so that you can keep sharing your ideas and sharing your thoughts. And I also want to encourage those who are watching this episode, if you have a voice, lift up your voice and share your opinion and thoughts. You can always follow me on all of my social platforms and on my website, SharonAngel.com. I again urge you to use the toolkit on my website, SharonAngel.com/podcast. It's all about identity and tools to finding your identity. Go ahead and download that and use it as you need to. And I'm sure it will be so useful to finding who you are. This is the Courage to Identify podcast with me, your host, Sharon Angel, and I'll talk to you soon.